Welcome, everyone, to episode 415 of Just Joshing. I'm your host, Joshua Pantelleresco. I write stuff in Podcast 2. Today, A.G. Kirkham joins the podcast. This one is actually my oldest conversation left. Everything else is actually relatively newish. A.G. is a romance author. We have a great little conversation about branding. Probably the best reason for an alias I've ever heard is in this episode. So this is definitely was a cool thing to be a part of. But yeah, it was a blast to have her on the show. So, as at this point, I'm just here to remind you guys that I am seeking audio clients, and my book Alice Zero is coming out in a week's time from the time this episode airs. I'm really excited about that. A little nervous about it, actually. Well, more like 5 days. And I'm really, really nervous. It's my first poetry on my own, which is kind of fun, and this was kind of my initial plan with The Watcher. And like all things, like I said, you put things out and good things happen, and that's what I'm doing right now. So let's just get to that conversation, shall we?
This episode of Just Joshing is sponsored by Indie Imprint. Indie Imprint supports creators by creators. Whether you are writing a book or creating a video game, Indie Imprint works with its clients to produce, edit, and present their projects to the world. For more information, check out their website at www.indieimprint.com.
Boom. All right, we're officially started. Is that good?
Sounds good.
All right. So, if you got anything incriminating you'd like to say, make it good. We are live after all, and we gotta be this as entertaining as possible.
Okay. So, can we see something incriminating?
Oh, it could be anything, yeah, whatever you'd like. Right?
Well, let's put it this way. In my books, there's a piece of me in every piece of that book, and all of the sex scenes are well thought
out. Okay, I'll live with that. That's good. That's good. So, is it AG or is it Anna? I should ask this question.
Well, in the books are called I'm using A.G. Kirkham because there's a specific reason. It's not a secret. I mean, my name is Anna, but the reason I've called myself A.G. Kirkham was because the three most important people in the world were part of my journey.
Okay.
My son Antonio, with the A. My daughter Julia, which is spelled with a G.
Really?
And my husband, whose last name is Kirkham.
So yeah. So
almost like I'm honoring them because without them, I wouldn't be who I am.
Yeah. So I have learned to respect the romance genre quite a bit because I've gotten to meet all you lovely ladies, and you're all awesome, and so I respect the fact that you guys are awesome just to begin with. But I do think one of the things I've had to learn over and over again in this podcast is I've had to eliminate a lot of preconceived notions, right? You have to, right? Like, especially with me, because here's the thing. I want people to trust me, but the thing is for me, because that's basically the bread and butter of my credibility. If I'm not trusted, then I can't do what I do, right? But here's the thing. Like, one of the hardest things I've had to learn. Well, I wouldn't say hardest, simplest thing. Sometimes more difficult than other things is like eliminate judgment. Because honestly, it just because I don't necessarily, it may not be for me.
No.
Right? It may not be for me.
For everybody.
Yeah, no, exactly. But that really shouldn't matter about how my biases should not impact how the world works. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes, because so let me give you my take on how it works. There are romance readers who are reading the romance because of the great sex.
Yeah.
Okay, because you're missing something at home and it really riles them, and it's for that. Then there are romance readers who are looking for the connection of the soul.
Yeah.
And you have to advocate to them and let them know that it does exist. And then there are those romance readers who want a little bit of a twist, so they like that little bit of action or that darkness in it. Because let's face it, romance isn't always just fluff and happiness. There's real stuff that happens in your life every day, right?
Absolutely.
So I had a conversation with you years ago in regards to the fact that, love comes at every age.
Yes.
You're 18, you're not just 20, you fall in love at 80, 90, who cares? the important part of the connection that I try to have is I'm bringing more. I'm trying to bring a little bit more of a reality to the fact that my heroines are usually all very mature women, and they've lived life, and they've had horrible things happen, and they've had wonderful things happen, and sometimes they've just lived a normal life, but life changes in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
In a heartbeat, you don't know from one minute to the next if you've appreciated that person that you were supposed to be with until one day they're not there. So romance readers are looking for that connection. They're looking for that integral part of themselves that they can feel something for that character.
Yeah. Well, the word has a lot. The word romance has a lot of different meanings. Like, I read fantasy, epic fantasy. It's not that different actually from a romance book. There's not, like, there are some genre differences, but to be honest with you, I mean, the romantic love conquers all is a big part of fantasy. It's a huge part of it. Whether people realize or not, I mean, all of us are saps for a good love story. All of us, on some level, we all want it. And I think every genre, like romance, if you really look at it from like the broad perspective, there's a little bit of a romance in everything, even horror.
Yes. That unknown love, or that forbidden place, or that one thing you shouldn't do. I'm actually in the midst of writing a brand new book right now. I'm about a little more than halfway there, and it's my first attempt, so I haven't really done mafia romance before, but I'm dabbling in it, and I've got to tell you, like, there's a whole different twist on the type of people that are involved in that. So I'm having a lot of fun just finding different elements of darkness.
Yes. Well, it's interesting too, because as we change, as people, we all change. And going back to something you actually just say, we all, like, in terms of appreciating people we have in our life until they're gone. I mean, it's true with everything. Like, nothing lasts forever. But that also includes like our own mentality. My voice as a writer has changed dramatically from when I started. I'm a lot sillier. I find that as I've gotten older, I've gotten sillier. Like literally, I wrote about a job interview that's actually a homage to Frankenstein, and an evil giant mutant cupcake is now running amok in this thing, right? And I have to be honest. There's definitely a little part of me that I think that the Disney afternoon way back when I was a kid got a piece of, and I never quite let it go.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely not, right? But I mean, there might come a point when I'm a little older where it's like, okay, listen, I love this Disney afternoon stuff, but look, come on, let's get into like the real, like, because we all have different phases in our lives, right? And we all go through different things that just change us. So, like, and we also just seek to challenge ourselves. So for you, is this a challenge to go into something a little different, or has your voice changed, or has your outlook changed a little bit in the last little bit?
It's actually been more of I've always said I was always committed to writing about older women going through something, and this book is not like that. This book is because I actually come from the background, right? So, like, I actually come from an Italian background. I've seen a little, I've heard a little, that kind of stuff. And you were born into it. When you are a part of that lifestyle, you're part of that lifestyle. So these books that I'm actually writing are more about how does love exist in that sort of lifestyle, because you are told from an early age how to behave, who to talk to. You're already promised in marriage a lot of times. It's already been decided for you. It's only an evolution of things that are occurring or how they occur, especially in the old traditional ways, right? And
yes.
So, I mean, how did people fall in love back then if you were told? Like, what, you were told to fall in love, so you did? I mean, that's not normal. So I wanted to bring a little bit, how do you bring power back to a woman who's had their life decided for them?
Well,
how do you own that power in a situation where you feel powerless? So I'm kind of taking a bit of a different twist to it, and trying to bring out, like, what else can you choose? What are your choices?
Italian stereotypes or Italian biases are hilarious to me. Like they're very I remember back, like, I grew up. Ironically, here's the thing: the girl that tried to bribe me with mashed potatoes is Italian, so I know her family very well. Right. So, and it's amazing to me because one of them is.
It was a pasta.
Don't look at me. I listen. I did not. It was not my idea for that bribe. It just was not my idea for that bribe. Like I said, for those who don't know, off the air we were just talking. As a test, I told her about my hilarious story about how someone tried to bribe me with mashed potatoes way back when I was younger, and and she, like, we both had a good little chuckle about this. Yeah, right. Like it's unbelievable, right? And like I said, life is funny. Life is really funny. So that's what we're talking about here off the air. But about that little off-air joke. But on the air, it's weird to me because I look at the fact that I moved around a lot as a kid. So my perspective is very unique because I'm always an outsider looking in, and I see how people do things, and I question why sometimes, right? And it's the natural inclination to question why. Once upon a time, and this might have been a very strong survival mechanism. Most of the things we take for granted today, the food we eat, like certain traditions we have, at one point were actually instrumental to survival. Right, absolutely. At one point they like legitimately. The Middle Ages happened. Like, especially look at the fact of arranged marriages. There was a time and a place where survival of the species was not, like, we didn't have the same health standards then that we do now. Number one. Number two, how wealth was shared and dictated to was completely, although not as completely as it once was, unfortunately, it was different than it was today. And so everything was looked upon a little differently. It was more business oriented, ironically enough, than it is today. Right.
Marriages for productivity of some type.
Yeah, exactly.
It's families for reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Usually, like there was money, or it was strength. It was like all those things played a major role. The reality is that, though, if you look at most of the traditions, there's a lot of hypocrisy involved in some of them, in some way or another. The Italian fantasy, a woman who screwed like a whore but yet was a virgin, which is one of the weirdest like little things I've heard in my head. 'Cause that's impossible. You can't have one without the other, right? It's like you have to pick one. You gotta pick one, and you just gotta live with that, all right? But no, the fantasy was, it's like, okay, it's not how it works, but.
Well, I don't think that I've ever heard of one yet.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, like
that. Haven't yet, but yeah. But you're right. There are so many stereotypical ideals that come back into it, and it was funny because I was actually just writing a scene where it talks about expectations, right? Expectations of families and expectations of what's supposed to be. And so my whole thought is, like, if I was being told who I had to marry, how do I feel love for that person when it's not a choice you get to make? So it really delves a little bit deeper. Like, I mean, yes, again, like I said before, you're going to have all different kinds of readers. There are readers that are going to read it because it's hot. There are readers who are going to read it because they're looking for a twist. And then there's those readers are going to be reading it saying, well, wow, look at how she's turned that situation into a piece of power for herself.
Yeah.
She's taken herself back into a place where she's allowed herself to feel, allowed herself to take some control.
Well, here's
what's going to happen tomorrow.
well, the other thing too is sometimes you can't control the hand you're dealt with sometimes, right? No, you can't. But a lot of who we are is how we make the best of the situations we're in, if we even try to, right? I've seen this like I read Sam Barone, who's a historical author. He definitely does and he had a situation with the arranged marriage. Again, back then it was a lot more brutal. Like Sumerian times, it was a lot more brutal than even, right? But he was very smart. He made the female protagonist, like, although much younger than her male counterpart, she was smart, she was capable, she was basically the brains behind the whole outfit. Because again, in her situation, that was the best way she could contribute and add the most to her life. And I think that honestly, I mean, one of the things that are going on right now is a lot of people are coming to the hard reality that we're not really in control of a whole hell of a lot, and that's a hard reality to accept. But where we go, but the truth of the matter is that honestly really doesn't matter. What really matters is how we make the most of the situations we're in, right? And
I fully agree.
Yeah.
I fully agree with you. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Like, I mean, we're all on lockdown. We're all locked down, right? And I have people that are really upset about it, and they don't know what to do with this, and I'm like, well, this is an opportunity to dig deep within yourself.
Good point.
This is an opportunity for you to experiment with other things that maybe you haven't tried. Take an online course. Reconnect with family by the phone. There's so many different ways to connect nowadays. I mean, all of us have phones and emails and texts and Zoom and webinars and da-da-da. Why is there an excuse for you to complain when really, if you turn it around, what can you do for yourself? How can you?
It's funny because this was the time. I ended up going 2 weeks, about 2 weeks earlier than I expected to go, but it worked out anyway because I started my freelance career. I wanted to start my freelance career now. So I'm like, well, you know what? There's no time like the present, and it's not like I have anything to lose right now. Why not just jump for it and see what I can do with it, right? And I've already doubled my goal for the first month. I might triple it before it's all said and done, and that's not a bad story. It's not a giant goal, but I'm living it. But again, I'm in a situation right now where my expenses are by and large covered, so I can take some chances right now, and it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't hurt me, really. And if I end up being broke when it's all said and done, well, I'm used to being poor. I mean, what are you gonna do? Right? Because I have nothing to lose, right? I have nothing to lose, and I think a lot of people have to look at it like this, where I find, like, where I am sympathetic in this time is people who had a business or a storefront right now. Let's be honest. A lot of these places are not going to open back up when this is over. It's just not going to happen. And I can understand why somebody would be a little pissed about that. I get that. Right. Right. And it sounds really easy.
Is a normal feeling. I say take the time to feel your feeling. Absolutely. Honor your feeling.
Yeah.
Because you're entitled to it. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, and I'm not minimizing the fact that they don't have the right to be upset. Absolutely, you have the right to be upset. But once you've had your 5-minute pity me party, what else can you do? Because if you were able to do that, you can do something else.
Well,
so I realize that the jump from one end to the other is huge for anybody. And trust me, I mean, I feel for you, but I also have faith in the fact that if you've done so much so far, I know that better things are going to come. Now, maybe it's just me being that person who is always on the positive side, and I mean, I am the one who encourages. I am the one who believes, and I mean, or else I wouldn't be writing romance, right? You know what I mean? Like that heart-filled person that's like, yes, you can.
Well, it's. My first freelance article came out earlier in the month. It was how my personal apocalypse prepared me for this. It's not an easy process, especially if it's something you dreamed of doing. It's really, like, that's hard. My first experience with it, I ended up losing the opportunity. I went to Arizona for work for one of my heroes. It did not work out well. It just did not end well, and I did not take that very well. And I'm being very honest about that. I wish I had gotten over my anger sooner, right? Because I would have seen more. I might have been able to do more. I actually think, honestly, if I gotten over my anger sooner, I would have left there sooner. Which, I think is the honest truth. I was so gung ho of just trying to achieve something while I was there, and I can't really say I didn't get anything while I was there. I did, but I look back and I think to myself, I could have done so much more, and I didn't. And it's one of those things where I look back, but I learned, right?
It's a life experience. That is an experience you are always going to move forward with now. And you know what? Anger and the loss of anything is a process.
Yes, it really is.
Right. There's no right, there's no wrong. There's no way you can say, well, no, you can feel that for 2 weeks and then you got to get over it. Like you can't say that to anybody. So if your process took 6 months, then it took 6 months. It was what you needed in that moment.
Yes.
Looking back at it, could you have done things different? Maybe. Sure.
Yeah.
But you didn't.
No, and I learned from it. And so this.
And you made the best decision with the information you had in the moment.
Exactly. No, and I learned from it. And like I said, looking back, I don't blame myself for being angry. What I wished I had done was managed it better. Well, that's also why I'm very sympathetic now to people. Like, again, in particular, yeah, I'm very sympathetic because it's a bitter pill to swallow. It really is. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. It's a bitter pill to swallow. But if you can swallow it, and this is something like I've realized this, if you can swallow it, you can at that point see other opportunities. Right when this happened, I started doing the reading thing on the podcast. I started my podcast is now 3 days a week. I've had other opportunities come up as a result, and this needs to be a little heavier drink than what I have. Actually, they're going 3 times a week, but also I'm taking the opportunity to write that book. I want to write more books. I'm taking the opportunity to draw more stuff. I'm taking the opportunity to meet and connect with amazing people like yourself. And then this is right, and because this is what I can do right now. And right now, like I said, I'm in a good position. I don't need to worry about money right this minute, right? So I can just chase my thing. I can let what happen. If I feel like taking a day off to watch watch something or chill, I can do that too. As long as I don't get myself into the habit of staying in that mode, we're good, right? Right? One day, taking a day off takes confidence. Going 2 or 3 days of it, it's starting to become a habit. You gotta be very careful about the habits you do.
Are you a structured kind of person? Like you need to have sort of a kind of a structure to your work day?
Me, I'm an unstructured dude by nature, actually. How did Tracy Posey describe me? It's like you're very unstructured, but it works for you, right? That's how she's there, right? But habits, but the thing is, everybody that I know that does something like art for a living in some form or fashion, there's a discipline to it. There has to be, because if you don't put the effort out there, if I don't release anything, guess what? No one's going to know I'm out there. No one's going to care, right?
It bothers me like crazy when you send your books out for review, and you get 4-star, 5-star, and they love it, and they get that one, right? That just
it's that one turd. It's the turd in the cornflake.
And then you just the deflation of it all. It just
I have a plan. We'll see how this works when my book comes out. I have a plan. I'm actually going to be grateful for the 1-star. When I go to the 1-star reviews, thank you. You want to know why? Because it doesn't matter if it's 1-star, if it's 5-star. If there's enough reviews, people are going to look at it anyway. Because I look at it like this way. If it's really good, people like it, that's awesome. If people really hate it, that's also awesome. Because either you're going to want a good story or you're going to want a train wreck. And for each and every person, it's one or the other. And I'm good with that, right? At the end of the day, I can't, once it's out there, I can't control what people think. I can't. I have no say in that. It's one of those things, I accept what I can't control. And I'm thankful. But what worries me is if no one reviews it. Because that means no one cares. And that's actually...
I actually have a program that I actually started for... so I'm releasing a book May 11th. It's the third in my series for my biker series, and it's coming out on May the 11th. And I started an ARC review. So, I threw it out there and to see, hey, who wants to review the book? And I was really pleasantly surprised. I've had 10 people sign up for it already, and I just did it. I just sent it out. So I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool, because if you want to review it, and they've read some of my stuff in the past, I'm like, okay. So I'm getting traction, and that's an important thing for me, because mean, yes, I write for me because I love it, but I also want to be doing this. This is my long-term goal.
Well, absolutely, and you got to look at it, and you're looking at this is an investment into you. This is what this is. Like, look, I had this conversation with another author. Like, most of us are part-timers. And what I mean by that is it's not our full-time living. That doesn't mean it's impossible. I had this conversation with somebody off air, because she went to me. I'm a poet. How can I make money as a poet, right? And I go, okay. Have you thought about putting your poem in a song? Have you thought about basing a TV series off your poem? Have you thought about other mediums that actually develop your stuff? Like every author should be looking at not only book sales, which is it. Don't get me wrong, that's what you want ultimately, right? But I'm sure you wouldn't say no to a TV series. I'm sure you wouldn't say no to right. You wouldn't say no. Right? You wouldn't say no if someone bought your French rights, your Spanish rights, your Brazil. But what I'm talking about is authors need to start thinking in terms of not only multiple ways to resell your stories, right? But also to resell them in different mediums and retell them in different ways. I did a music video. I published a book called The Watcher a few years back now, 2014. I actually did a little like music video style thing using my voice as a poem. I retold the story in the modern day, right? It was an experiment. I never actually released it, but it taught me an awful lot about the fact that I can tell the same story.
I think you need to tell me. I think you need to send it to me. I want to hear that.
Okay, yeah. Crap. It's in my video camera in Calgary. It's gonna be a little while before I can send it to you. But no, the idea was I would take my poem and I would do it. I almost like a rap, like I wouldn't do like me rapping and doing a poetry. What I would do is, I would do the mic. I would do the right. I would be the only voice, like background, and then I would just let the story play out, and it would be a different thing because again, it's what it taught me was you can tell the same story a myriad of different ways based upon the medium you have to tell it. And when you put it in those terms, you can actually take a story, your intellectual property, and sell it 5, 6, 8, 10 different ways. And really, let's be blunt, right? Let's say you sold. So if you sold each different way for $1,000, just hypothetically, and you sold it 10 different ways, that's $10,000, right? Right? I mean, right? And it's essentially the same thing over and over and over. And I'm thinking, that's the real business of what we do. That's honestly the real business. It's not. Don't get me wrong. I love the book, but you know what? I also would love the video game. I also would love the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course, because you get to. There's a new my dream. So I might as well tell you.
Yeah.
There is an online movie station, I think it's streaming only, that only does romance.
Yeah.
Right? And they're taking some of the books that you get like from the romance genre and they're making them into movies and putting them on their streaming channel. And I'm sitting there going, oh, big me. So,
yeah, but see,
I'm waiting there and going, okay, well, how do I get involved in that? What are the research you have to do? You know, it's a long-term goal, but it's still there, right?
Yeah, no, and you have to be thinking in those terms, no matter who you are, because honestly, you might have a hit. It's not. I think, like honestly, in terms of quality of work, right now, doesn't matter what genre you're in. There's great quality everywhere. The challenge, there's a lot of crap too, but there's a great quality everywhere, right? The challenge is making yourself stand out, and well, one of the ways you can do that is, okay, I have my novel coming out May 1st, Cloud Diver. So the novel might do X, Y, and Z, but you know what would also be cool? If I can go to Disney and be like, hey guys, I think this would be awesome for you, right? And if you think I'm not researching that, and you think I'm not bold enough to go for it, no, I am. I'm researching and bold enough. I'm not afraid of a no. Fuck that. Who cares, right? Right? If I can.
It's just 2 letters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. If they say no, I'm exactly where I am now, right? If they say yes, well, who knows, right? But that's the thing. Like, I think authors in general have to start thinking in these terms, because we are all small businesses. Is essentially what we are. But the thing is, we all have mobility. Our big advantage is we have the mobility to approach a myriad of different things at once. So, if we're thinking book, that's great, and we should. But we also should be thinking, okay, where can I take it from here? Can I do merchandise? Can I do this? Because the more things you have that you can sell with your stuff, well, then one, you're not in this constant advantage of volume and churn out all the time. Although, again, if that's how you write, great, knock yourself out, right? But I mean, it's not just that. Now you can take an idea and you can maximize its financial potential. Because intellectual property is where the money is where money is today, whether people realize it or not. It's just the challenge is you can't just look at it from a traditional model anymore. You have to look at it. Okay, where can we go with this? What can we do with this? What
you have to do revenue streams as well. So
yeah.
You have revenue streams, and so I've started thinking about that, because it is about branding. It is about branding who you are as an author is one thing, but it's also about branding the series you have. So I've really started to, when I wrote my first one, it was a labor of love, and it was just like, oh, okay. And it wasn't until the second and the third that I started to think, okay, so what am I going to do with this? Because this is, I've created a city, I've created a place, I've created these characters. What do I do with them after that? So, I'm starting to actually look at what makes this particular series stand out, and I'm looking at how to brand certain areas. So do we get t-shirts with Team War, Team Lugar, Team whatever, or do I do something along the lines that I have this one particular character that makes this incredible jewelry? So do I find somebody who's doing homemade jewelry and maybe put some of her pieces on and label it after what they're wearing or what they're doing? And I've actually started doing something a little different, and I'm really kind of excited about it, because when I write, I listen to music. And whatever music moves me is kind of like how I'm writing in the moment, right? And so I do a playlist. So as I'm listening to music that really moves me, I'll write down the songs, and then at the very back of the book, I have a playlist of the songs that have inspired me for that particular book. Right? So things like that, things to kind of make you go, okay, so where is she coming from with this? Or give me a little piece of this author inside, right? Like, why is that important to her? Where did these come? I want people to know that there is a process in place when I write. It's not just, oh, okay, I'm just going to pick two people fall in love. That's not how it works. There's a whole process in the midst of it. So I have to think you have to be true to yourself. You have to brand yourself the way you want to be known. And then I think you have to be inspired as to what represents what you're writing, for you to be able to do those different revenue streams that you are comfortable with. And I think it can be very different. For you, I can totally see you being a rap star. I can totally see that for you. And being able to look at, going to Disney or video games, I can really see that. For me, I see trends in clothing or jewelry, or so you have to kind of look past just the book itself, but where does your heart go when you read them?
Absolutely.
What is it? What book brings you to them? Why did you choose that character? What about her can be represented in some sort of object or some sort of thing?
Well, it's about authenticity too. Because you have to be authentic to what your book, you true to your book and true to yourself, like what you're comfortable doing. Me, I would love a video game based on my current novel, because it would be fun, and I would have a blast with it, and I probably would suck at the game too, which would be just an amazing thing. Playing my own games, I suck at my own game. It's true, but that's all right. But the thing is, the idea is really intriguing to me, because again, you can tell that story in that. But video games are such a unique art form in of themselves that it's just such a neat thing for me. But clothing is, clothing is not my thing, but if it's your thing, awesome, because that means, there's a lot of value in it. People see a lot of values into the trends and all that stuff. And if you can get your hands on it, if you can feel the pulse of where things are going, well, you've done something really, 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 really smart for yourself. And you know what? Again, it's about maximizing your ideas. And I think that's a really big thing going forward is, Well, I don't know what this new world's going to look like fully, but I think the value of ideas has actually skyrocketed as a result of what's going on right now. Because
look at the publishing industry as a whole.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, like I mean, everything is up for grabs at this point.
Yeah.
It's so diverse, so different, and there's a whole new level of trust and distrust that's happened along the whole progression of what you've done and how you've done it. So, I mean, I have to say, when I started 2.5 years ago, when I published my first book, man, was I green.
Yeah.
I had like, wow, kaleidoscope glasses. They were just so rosy. And then along the way, you meet the right people, and then you meet the wrong people.
Oh, yeah.
And then you make good decisions, you make crappy decisions. You know, you're excited one day, and then you're devastated the next day. And it's managing all of that, and then still being able to pull yourself together to say, I mean, honestly, after the first book, I went through a spurt because I didn't write the second. I didn't release the second for almost 1.5 years, right? Because I was at a point where I was like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? For what? And it wasn't until, and I gotta say, I have the best husband in the world, right? And he sat me down one day and he said, you know, you do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's about you, and this is a piece of who you are. And if no one else reads it but you and me, there's a legacy that your children and your grandchildren are going to say, wow, my grandmother did that. Like, and, you know, I mean, I'm a grandmother. I want them to know that there were so many different pieces to who I was. I'm not just your, you know, you're not that because that's what I am. I'm a nonna, right? I'm not just the person who sits on the floor and plays toys with you, or buys you those things, or makes you the homemade lasagna, or whatever. There's a whole totally different piece of you that you have never really gotten to know, just based on the fact that
you've let yourself live. Well, you've let yourself live the full life, right? And that's the truth. Like, you've let yourself live a full life, and once you let yourself explore everything you can do, you can never fully go back into that bottle again. You just can't. It kills you little by little, right? So in your case, this is as much about proving what you can do, as much as I would say as you. Yeah, you want people to know who you are and a good, like, the layers to you. But I think more importantly than that, you're still trying to figure out what you can and can't do, even at your age. You're like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just see what happens.
Oh, I'm so past that. Yeah, I'm so screwed.
Yeah.
I just don't care anymore. I mean, honestly, to tell you the truth, when I first started writing, I had more people with pieces of horror, especially when I told them what I was writing, than you would ever imagine. My mother, I can't even mention my books in her home. So you gotta think, my mom, you know, that, like, knows I write, but is freaked out about what I write. My son are amazing individuals, but they're like, Mom, we will support you 100%, but I'm never opening that book. I'm like, never opening that book, because they have an idea of who their mother is, and they just can't accept the fact that if they open that book and they read that, they're like, oh my God. So I think that Pandora's box for them is huge, but that's not my problem, that's theirs.
No, there's that. I also, like, there are aspects about your parents. You have to. How old are your kids, by the way? I should ask that question.
Well, my kids are in their 30s.
Okay. So yeah. Because again, I moved around so much and I've seen so much, and I saw a lot at a very young age. I probably shouldn't have. Looking in hindsight, I had to come to terms with who my parents were and who they are not. And one of the hardest things to do for a kid is to look at their parent and look at them as a full person.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things to do, because okay, I love my dad. I love him to death. It took me a long time to look at him as just a man, right? It took me that does not happen overnight. There comes a point when you have to see your parents as the people they are, and and you have to be ready to see that. My grandmother is in her 80s, one of my grandmothers, and she's dating again, and it's awesome. And I love it, right? I have conversations with her I never thought I'd have in a million years. She actually makes me blush a little bit sometimes, right? Just like, holy crap, right? But her son, my uncle, isn't ready for it because it's a completely different aspect to her that he's never seen before or really fully comprehended before. She's a woman. She wants to live her life to how she sees fit, and you know what? And honestly, more power to her. She deserves that. But the thing about that is, right? That requires for the kid to grow up a little bit on some fundamental level, right?
But that's the good part of what I've learned along the way. Is I don't have to own it.
Yeah, exactly. No.
So I respect the fact that, hey, you don't have to open it, but you do need to know I do this. And they are great supporters. They come to all of my book launches. You know, if I'm able to have like a physical launch, they show up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There and they support me. But I understand that. I can understand it. I personally think if it were me, I'd want to know more about my mom. But like, hey, you're not ready for it. That's okay.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But it's all people that they were everywhere along the line. I came into more roles that you could ever possibly imagine. Because nobody sees me, and I mean, I guess maybe I just don't show that persona of being a person who writes that way. But my best friend was like, "Are you sure?" And she's known me for 30 years, and I said, "Okay, you know what? Read it. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't." And I'm really lucky. My friends are amazing, and they're supportive and wonderful. But it's been really hard for them to see me differently because I've always been very corporate. Very business-like. You know, I have an accounting background. I have a human resources background. I still work in that field. I do workshops every day on how to help people to find work and da-da-da. So there's this whole element of who I am. And then there's this other little piece that I kept secret for so long. And all of a sudden it's out there. And it's just like, how did I not know this?
Well, it's funny because, again, I look at things... I've interviewed so many people now. It's funny to me because I can never go back into the box again either, right? Because I've seen so much that. So I was on a bus trip, and this is because I was going to Toronto, go back to Calgary. I was on a bus, and I was listening to people from, just from this part of the world, and how it's also a way of thinking that hasn't fully gone beyond. How to put this for listeners. By and large, southwestern Ontario, and I'm including Toronto, there's a certain insulation here. Because by its nature, there's a certain insulation. And if you live here, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't worry about it. It's probably best you don't experience. Right? But the fact of the matter is, I know deep down, I know that people are... Everybody's got parts to themselves that doesn't fit this magical little box, and I'm aware of it. I don't judge anyone for it, but the thing is, a lot of people, but the opportunities here to show that in a healthy way are few and far between. So what usually ends up happening is everybody does it under the table, right? So she's nodding her head. She's nodding her head, ladies and gentlemen. She goes, "No, she knows what I'm talking about there," right? So it's one of those situations where we've been taught to think a certain way, and when people don't fit that category, and especially if you've done this for a very long period of time, right? Right? It's hard for people to see another side to that person, but the thing is, we all have those sides to us. We all do. The real... So...
And I think it's acceptance, too. People are afraid of not being accepted, so they hide the pieces of themselves. Thinking no one's going to be able to accept that part of me. Well, I mean, that is who you are.
Yeah.
So it might even play into who you are, whether they know it fully or not. So why?
In my experience, it always comes out. Whether people realize it or not, to give themselves away, all of us do. Like some are more openly crazy about it than others. Like I'm openly me. Like I don't try to hide. I'm too old to give a shit. I'm just way too old to give a shit. I don't care. You will like me or you won't, and I'm good either way. all right, I wish you well. And that's it. And that's all. and that's how I see things, right? But but the thing is, I've been very blessed in the fact that I've moved around, I've seen as much as I've seen, and I've had the opportunity to make my own decisions about who I want to be. And because of that, I am who I am. I can look at anybody and go, you know what, it doesn't matter. Like, I had one of my ex-girlfriends, she taught me a lot about how love actually works. And what I mean by that is, she didn't fit a lot of my, like, we weren't a good long-term fit for each other, but one of the best things I learned from her was I can look at somebody, even if they're not for me, and still find a way to love them for who they are anyway. And that's a big, I don't know what your religious denomination is, and that's but for me, I look at, like, I understand, for lack of a better term, I understand the concept of the idea of God's love, the idea of love being a universal constant, right? Because it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what you do, God loves you, and that's a very, 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 and honestly, to understand that, fully, that means you got to be able to look at anybody you meet. There are parts about people you're not going to like. There are parts about people you're going to love. But the fact of the matter is, can you love the whole person, regardless of what you see? And the answer is yes. Then you can love anybody. And that's a very powerful thing, actually.
It's so powerful. And, I also believe that you can love everybody.
Yeah.
And I believe that you can be in love with that person or those people. And there's so many levels of love.
Yeah.
And it's who you are in the moment and what you need in the moment that's going to help you to evolve to that ultimate place, right? I mean, I believe in true love, obviously. I believe that people come into your life for a reason and you fall in love for that reason. And it has to be mutual. It has to be two people giving 100% of who they are to make it work. I also think I was actually told by a very wise old man, and I'll never forget, he was dying of cancer, and it was me and his daughter, and we were I was over at their home one day, and he was sitting in this great big chair, and he has bone cancer, so as he was in so much pain, and he calls us over because we were both bitching about the lack of relationships or the relationships that we had been in, and and like, not really bad bashing, but it's like, what's wrong with us? Why can't we and like typical stuff, right? And he calls us over, and we were both seeing partners at the time, and he said to me, he says, "Come here, sit down." He said, so we sat down beside him, and he says, "Let me explain something to you. Love should not be that hard."
No.
Love should not be that hard. If you look at them and you are only finding the things that are wrong, it's time to let them go. And if you look at them and all you see is all the things that they're trying to either improve, or they make you feel, or you feed them and and he feeds you, like in all those ways, that is right, because it fits. And when things fit, they should simply fit. You shouldn't force the pieces to come together into a puzzle that makes no sense. So, I look back on that, and I always thought that was one of the most uniquely beautiful gifts he has ever given us. Because he said to me, if it is that hard, you need to let it go. It's not supposed to be this hard. And we do know relationships take work, and they do take work, but it takes work in the sense of it takes honesty, open communication, the ability to love, and the ability to forgive, and the ability to listen, which I think is a key one, is listening. But do we all do that? Or are we also into ourselves sometimes, that we cut them off because we're not in the mood, because we're not in that space? So it does take work, because we have to really work on ourselves and allow ourselves to be in that space where we can allow these things to happen. So, there's so many ways to talk about it. There's so many ways to revolve around it. At the end of the day, open your eyes, your ears, and your heart. That's all really it takes. Accept while you can and how you can. And know your own limitations, because that's a
Yeah, and also just and something I've learned with just even friend, like any kind of relationship, whether it's friendship or romantic, whatever, you have a set time with it, whatever that set time is. And some people are very lucky; it goes a long time, but sometimes it's a very short time. In any case, enjoy it for what it is now and be grateful for it that you even had it. Dr. Seuss said it best: "I'm sorry it's over. I'm happy it happened." And if you can actually have that attitude. If you can have that attitude with every relationship you have, look, there are people that don't care for me anymore, and there's friendships I've outgrown too. But that doesn't mean I'm not grateful that I had those friendships, and it's not I'm ungrateful that I had the opportunity to meet the people I met, because I learned so much from everybody. But you have to
think back on them. Do you ever think back on them and say, I could have done that different, or I wish that had happened differently, because I have my own. I have my own thoughts, and it's usually when I'm done. And it's not that I don't care or I wish them ill. I don't. It's just that I'm not gonna continually.
I don't beat myself up. To answer your question, I don't beat myself up for anything like that. I look at it more like this. There's one friendship in particular I think about like this, and we don't talk, but that's their decision. Right. I have an idea of some of the mistakes I've made, but I know I can't fix them right now because we don't have that chance to have that conversation and have closure. If there was, I think it would be more actually better for them than it would be for me, actually, because whatever they're carrying for me would be gone. And even if we're not friends after that moment in time, you know what? That's fine too. Like, you know what? For them in particular, that would be a good thing, I think. Right?
Sure, it's always important. I think that, being able to have that last piece of communication, whether it be what you want or you don't want, but at least having it, I think is, again, it's like that whole process of a death of a relationship or a death of a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the same sort of thing, right? That closure, it allows you both to move on.
Yeah, no, that's it. It makes it a lot easier. You can move on without it, but it's a lot harder. And I find like most of any relationship that has soured, like some relationships just evolve, like we move on. Like they're at a different point in their life, I'm in a different point in my life, and those ones are really easy to understand. It's just like, you know what, I'm not there, and you're not here. Life moves on. I wish you well. They wish me well. It's not that we're still friends, but life has just put us in different directions. And those ones are easy. And those ones are easy to understand and forgive. It's when a relationship sours. You have to look at yourself. You gotta look at yourself honestly, because you're the thing in common with the relationships that sour, right? But you also just look at what happened. In my case, and honestly, ultimately, what it comes down to, and I've learned this, is it's ultimately about trust. Right? At some point in the relationship, trust broke down. Right? Sometimes, right? That's what happened. Like that's it. Like usually when a relationship goes bad, at some point in the relationship, trust broke down.
Sure.
Right? And sometimes, and you know what? And I'm enough of a man to admit, you know what? I played a role in every relationship that I've had that has soured. I've played a role in it. And that's an honest, like.
We do in all relationships, whether they've gone bad or whether they're going really well. You still have that part that you played in that relationship. I mean, I'm divorced, right?
Yeah.
And my first marriage was not a happy one, not at all.
Yeah.
And was it all my fault? Absolutely not. Was it all his fault? Absolutely not. And by the end, though, I had become a person I needed. And when you look at it that way, you're like, wow, wow, how did this get so bad? And how did I not see it till now? So yeah, we need to take responsibility for who we are. Absolutely. But then after you let the dust settle and you moved on and he has his life and I have mine, I do a check-in with myself and I say, where am I right now? Who am I right now? What are my goals? What are my dreams? I actually sit down and I really think it through. And I'm very much a visual person. When I see it in front of me and I lay it out, it's like, yeah, that's right. It's right, and it feels right, and it is right. And sometimes I'll look at something and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. Or my role here. Because when you are a mother, when the child is a year old, you are their everything. When they are 10, your relationship changes. Right? When they are 15, your relationship changes. And it continues to change and evolve as it should. A marriage is exactly the same. You know, when I first met my husband, Rick now, when we were together, it was about finding out who we were, building that trust, learning how we work, what makes us tick, what are the things that upset us. You know, does it mean enough? What are our expectations? Setting those things forward, and then you move on to your next level about finding out, do we work long term? Is this what we want? It took us a long time to get married. I mean, I refused to be married for a long time. It took him 7 years to convince me to marry him. So I finally married him. And now that we're married, it was like we still promise each other not to take each other for granted. We have those conversations because, to me, it's an integral part of continuing to grow as a couple, not only continuing to grow as an individual. I mean, how else do you explore the different pieces of who you are if you're not able to have that person? Or in my case, I have my best friend, but he's not just my best friend. He's my confidant, and he's, you know, the person I go to ideas, and you know, and I'm like, you know, yesterday I said to him, I said, hey, I have to write a funeral scene. Can you help me with this? Because, like, you know, like, to me, writing a funeral scene is very daunting because it's dark, and I'm not dark normally, so it takes a while for me to kind of get myself into that headspace, right? So who else do you do that with if it's not that person that you build that trust with? As you're saying, it's that integral part of putting two people together. You can love anybody, but if you don't trust them, how do you live with them?
Exactly. That's the nature of every relationship, ultimately. So, wow, we've got some really deep waters here. I like it.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
We always do. We did this the last time too. We were so far off. We started on like this planet and ended up in Venus.
You know, but those are the best conversations. like honestly, they're the best ones. You don't want. I don't mind it with people like people have their boundaries. And I try my best to respect them. I let them open it up. But honestly, the best ones are the real ones. Like you know, anyone that listens to this conversation will be like, wow, we ended up talking we talked about like romance, and then we ended up going to like the nature of love and relationships. And it's like, yeah, because you know that's what you're supposed to do at some point.
Who's to say what's right and what's wrong? I mean, I always have. So it was really funny because we had this really crazy conversation with a really good friend of mine, and I have a really good friend that I absolutely adore. I adore her. I mean, I want nothing but confetti and sugar to fall on her because she's so wonderful. But I absolutely detest the person she's with. Detest him. Everything about him. And I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, how do I make this work? Because like my love for her is greater than what it would be for me to risk that relationship at this point.
Yep.
Right? And it's so hard because you need to consider all elements of these things. You know, it doesn't matter who it is. If you love someone, you're going to hurt for them. Those boundaries, like you say, you know, you have to really kind of look at how far are you willing to cross it, and what are the consequences of crossing.
Well, there's two trains of thought here. First and foremost is this question: do you trust your friend?
Pardon?
Do you trust your friend?
Absolutely.
Then if you trust her, then that's really half the equation solved. It doesn't matter if this is a good fit or a bad fit for her personally. What matters is that you trust her, and that even that she's capable, she's strong enough, that she's okay, that you trust her to make the mistakes. It's important. It's a very important thing. Is you gotta go, okay, I trust you. Now, obviously, there's a balance with that. You have to give them, like, you can still pull your friend aside and go, hey, listen, this guy sucks. Right? right? Maybe not quite as direct, but I mean that's what it is. Listen, this is your life. I respect you and I love you, but this, and the slot machine of life, he's not even a lemon, right? And that's right. And the slot machine. No, he's not even a lemon. He might be like a half lemon or a quarter lemon. He's something. That's all. It doesn't really matter. It's like and that's it. It's like I personally think, and there's again, it's a delicate line. It's a very delicate line because you have to be concerned for your friend, and it's okay to even voice that concern, right? But once you voice that concern,
yeah, you have to walk away.
You have to walk away, right? That's it. You have to walk away, and you have to trust that they will either say, "Thank you very much. I'll take it under advisement," which is the code for they're not going to, but that's okay. You've done what you're supposed to do, and that's great. The other part of the equation is, so again, it's about trusting your friend. Like you have to. I had a friend who made a mistake of trying to solve all his one friend's problems, and it doesn't work because what happens is here's what happens. Even if you do solve this problem, another form of this problem is going to show up in another, and it's going to actually be worse because that's how the universe works. That's how the universe works. The universe, God, whatever you want to call it, likes going. If you're going down the wrong path, there's like a brick wall, and you go through that brick wall. It's like, okay, I learned something. You hope, but if that doesn't work, there's a bigger brick wall right there for you to run into, and eventually, sooner or later, right, you're not going to break through that brick wall. That brick wall is going to break you. So there is. So you can warn them about the brick wall, but you gotta let them take the plunge, right? And that's pretty much. So, and I'm at a very different point in my life where I have to be careful because I'm almost the other way where I'm almost too silent because I have that. But it's not because I don't care, but it's because it's almost like if I say something, will this actually accomplish anything? No, but sometimes you still have to be the one to say something, and it's tricky.
If you don't say anything, nothing has the opportunity to change.
And it's a really tricky one because sometimes it's like, okay, I should say something here. Should I? And it's a hard one sometimes in my head, right? It's a hard one because
you play in the relationship, and that's why I always say to myself, what is my role in this relationship?
Yeah.
Role is, you know what, we recognize that we have that connection, and I'm going to feel safe saying it. If I look around and I say, that's not my role. That's not, no. Just because I see it doesn't necessarily mean that's where I'm supposed to be.
No.
So I walk away.
Yeah.
So it really is about distinguishing what is your role in this to begin with. Like, do you have, well, not even the right, because everybody has the right, but do you really need to?
Well, it's a tough balancing act. Like it's not, you don't like most of the time you don't actually need to, right? You don't actually do it. Now, where you have to be, and this is where I kind of find, this is where I kind of do step in, or this is where I still step in. If I feel the person I'm talking to is deceiving themselves, I will put a big bucket of ice water and they won't like me in that moment very much, but I'm okay being that kind of supervillain in someone's life. It's like, you know what, this is the truth, right? Whether you like it or you don't, this is what you got, right? If you don't want to hear it, that's fine, but don't BS me. That's the only thing I'm going to ask you. Just if you want to do it, if you're going to do it, that's fine. Please don't lie to me. Yeah. Please don't lie to me. I don't like. To me, deception wastes my time. More often than not, deception just is a time waster. I don't have that much time to waste. So, yeah. So, yeah.
Time is precious. This is my most valuable commodity.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. No. Exactly. I don't like it when people lie to me. I don't like honestly, my biggest cardinal sin with people, I'll forgive anything. I don't really care what you do. Don't waste my time. Just don't waste my time. I can't get that back. If you waste my time, right? Then I look at you and I go, what did I do to you? Like seriously, well, like why?
Getting mashed potato without the meat.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's even worse. I don't even get the mashed potatoes at that point. It's like It's like I don't even get a mashed potato for this. I don't even get an ice cream with Baileys with this or something. Ugh, I hate that. Right? I hate that. Like, that's the only thing I really hate. So, folks, if you want me to leave you well enough alone, don't BS me. That's it. That's it. I'll leave you alone. I don't care at that point what you got. As long as you're happy with it, I'm good with it. But don't waste my time. Don't lie to me, because I get really annoyed with that. And I might be nice about it the first time, but eventually I stop getting nice. And yeah, I've learned how to be an asshole as I've gotten older too. So it's just like it's.
And that might be necessary from time to time.
Well, you have to be ruthless a little bit. Like honestly, I've learned this. Like, life requires this degree of ruthlessness. It does. It's not like, I'm not saying this out of like. I'm not necessarily saying I'm going to deliberately go my way to be mean to somebody, because that's not cool either. But you have to. There's kindness is often mistaken for weakness, and it's not. That's not. I don't like being walked on. And I will kill you with my kindness. So, yeah.
I don't think I'm ruthless, but I think I'm very direct.
Yeah.
If I want something, I can be extremely direct in what I want. And it's, and it's as easy as saying, hey, this is my expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not there. So can you tell me why it's not there? Like, it's not that. I just want to know.
Yeah.
But I do have expectations that I want met. In everything that I do. If I want something, I'm going to go after it, because no one's going to hand me it.
No.
So, and if I don't ask, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I should have maybe clarified this. I don't necessarily mean you have to necessarily be an asshole. But again, be direct, go for it, be aggressive, be a little bit like take
Challenge yourself.
Yeah.
Challenge yourself to respect the choice you made at the beginning and follow it through, even when it gets hard.
Exactly. And also try not to sell yourself short. Like I think the worst thing you can do with yourself is damn yourself with the faintest praise.
Yes.
It's the worst thing you can do, because you're saying you're a little bit, but the reality is you're much more. You almost always are. And like saying like you're competent at something, okay? That's damning yourself with the faintest of praise, because now you're not great, now you're not terrible, you're mediocre, right? You're mediocre. That's basically what you're saying, and it's like, oh.
I was just having this conversation today. I was doing a workshop today, and the workshop is called Skills and Accomplishments, right? How do you talk about yourself? Because a lot of people don't brag. Because they're, it's boastful, we shouldn't be doing it, it's da-da-da-da-da-da. But, we were talking about, well, you know what, there's a lot of different ways to be able to talk about yourself in such a positive way, and really look at what have you accomplished, and really grow from that accomplishment and create other goals from that accomplishment. So why are we taking the back seat?
I find, do you know where I learned how to do it, believe it or not? Professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I learned how to do it. Because you know what? That's their business. Their job, brother, is to talking to the arena, brother. And you have to go out there and say how much of a badass you are, brother, as you're going to beat up this guy who's also a badass. And you have to do both. You have to learn how to build other people up around you, but you also have to learn how to build yourself up too. Good salesmen have figured out this technique. It's this: you have to treat yourself like, no matter who you're talking with, that you belong in that conversation. Right? You don't necessarily have to be the best. You don't have to put yourself, like, again, a little humility is actually good. But the thing is, you can't. I learned this when I interviewed Rob Sawyer. I was a little intimidated the first 5 minutes I interviewed Rob. And I realized after we were having our back and forth that I really shouldn't be intimidated by Rob. Rob's a good guy. And he's a human being like everybody else. He's got good points, he's got bad points, but he's a human being, right? And I realized after I interviewed Rob that I don't have to take a backseat to anybody. It doesn't matter who it is, right? I still have those moments where I fanboy out. It's like, oh my god, I'm talking to how did this happen? I had a little bit of that when I talked to Charles Salint last year. I still had those moments, but now I don't treat them like, oh my god, what am I doing here? It's like, no, I go like this now. Oh my god, this is great. I still have that fanboy, but I've turned it into a positive and not a negative. And right? It's not like I don't belong here. Although sometimes I go, how did I get here? I still do that from time to time. It's like, how did this happen, right? but it's one of those things in life I've learned that you have to be willing to learn the art of putting yourself in as positive a position as you possibly can without coming across like an egotistical jerk. It's okay to have an ego, by the way. You should have some ego. Yeah, we all do. A little ego is good, actually. But you have to realize that at the end of the day, you still put your pants on one leg at a time, right? You still got to do what everybody else does, and you have to find a healthy balance of putting yourself in a position where people can look at you, but at the same time be okay with the fact that when it's done, when that moment of the sun's done, okay, it's somebody else's turn. Let's do that. I can go back to being in the crowd and making an ass of myself on a regular basis, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Right.
Very good with that.
Yeah. It's my skill. That's something I have something.
You have to put you in that crowd every once in a while, then.
What? Yes.
In that middle of that crowd every once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think so. I'm going to do this as Miss Anna because I know you as Anna, right? I think we have a great interview here. What do you think?
I think it's a great interview.
Yeah.
I love talking to you.
Yeah.
You always put a foot on something, and you make me think, and hopefully I've given you a little something to think.
Actually, yeah. You made me laugh, especially at the beginning. You made me laugh really, really good. And no, it's great. Like you. I always like talking to people who are confident in themselves. It's actually really refreshing because you're living proof. You're living proof that, again, just the right attitude, you can accomplish a lot of good things, and you've done a lot of great things. So it's awesome. So, yeah.
I really appreciate that. I work really hard at it, and every day like I said before, I think that there's never a time limit to becoming the best you want to become, right?
No.
I mean, I wanted to learn how to kickbox. I'm kickboxing.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn. I want to write. I'm writing. I want to change and become something.
So listen. If I ever have to spar with you, just don't turn me into a pretzel, okay? I'm very. Like water balloon, poodle. Ah!
Well, watch my uppercut. It's really.
Oh, okay. Smelling salts. Bring smelling salts. Also, cheesecake bribes, so she takes the fall.
That's right.
Yeah. That's right. It's like, I'll tell you what. Before we fight, cheesecake. And you're like, oh, now I can't beat you up.
I can't give you that.
Yeah, exactly. Can't. See, yeah, that's the real art. See, the real art of world peace is making sure everybody's well fed and happy. That's the secret to world peace. I think we'll find out somewhere down the road. So why don't we do this? Why don't you plug your book coming out May 11th, right? Why don't you plug that book? Why don't you plug, if there's anything else you're doing right now between now and then, plug that too. I'll make sure, or even after that, if you know, that'd be great, and how people can find you.
Okay, so definitely you can find me. My website is romancebyagkirkham.com. I'm on Facebook, again, under A.G. Kirkham, so look me up. We actually have a lot of information that's coming out. We have a cover reveal coming up for the new book. The new book is called Orion. Really loving those two characters in there. Really loving the depthness of who they are and their story together. And it comes out on May the 11th on Amazon, but you can also get it on Ingram. You can get it on Kobo and a whole bunch of different places. So it's online just about everywhere. Kindle Unlimited, all of that stuff. And I'm actually working on a new one, a new series that I've decided to call Dark Rain, which I'm so in love with. And basically, it's a little bit of a twist in my romance genre. It's more of mafia romance.
Nice.
So I'm loving that idea because it's just, I don't know, there's something about the way this is coming together that I'm thinking. Dark is really new and different for me, so I'm embracing that. But absolutely, please go to agkirkham.com. Romance by A.G. Kirkham is the site. You can sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah. Real quick, are you on Twitter or Instagram?
Yes, I am. I'm on Instagram.
Okay.
Again, the handle is A.G. Kirkham.
Okay.
And I think I'm on Twitter as well. So I'm on all of those things. I'm everywhere.
You're everywhere. All right. Excellent.
This is Kathleen with BookBrush, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about BookBrush.com. Our team developed BookBrush for authors like you after having hundreds of conversations with authors that were struggling with creating images or simply paying too much per image to have a graphic designer do the job. So we created, for authors specifically, the easiest way to create professional ads and social media images for your books. We'd love to have you join us at bookbrush.com.
Let me help you tell your story. I offer a variety of audio services. I will narrate, I will produce, I will edit, and I will master your file so that it will be ready for Audible and Spotify. And if you don't want me to narrate your story, whether you want to do it or get someone else, I will help you find the right person for the job. All in all, I just want to help you tell your story. Let me help you. For information on my rates and services, please click the link below in the podcast description, jpenteloresco.wordpress.com, for more details. And that is my conversation with A.G. Kirkham, ladies and gentlemen. It was a blast to have her. Check out her books. Check out what she does. I think she'll never forget the mashed potato story for the rest of her life. I know I certainly won't. And yeah, so I hope you guys are enjoying my Instagram videos. I'm going to be doing them every day on some form. I've been playing with the idea of marketing on Instagram, and I think the ability to have, we have these magical phones, so might as well take advantage of their power and what they can do and how they can reach people. And Instagram seems like a fun little place to do it. So you'll be seeing motivationals on a regular basis and occasional plug for my stuff as well. Like I said, my audio services are available. But that all being said, I just kind of wanted to say thanks, guys, for listening to this episode. That will do it for this episode, Just Joshing. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so a number of different ways. You can subscribe to the podcast. I'm on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Deezer. I am on YouTube at Josh Penteloresco. My book, Alice Zero, is available September 8th. The Cloud Diver is available now, illustrated by Lance Spawn and myself. The link is below. My newsletter is available. Please subscribe. I have merchandise as well if you want to support the podcast that way. I even have the tip jar for PayPal if that's what you want to do. But if not, if none of those things appeal to you, that's okay. Thank you very much for listening. I will be back with February's Dog as my next guest. And until then, guys, stay inspired and keep surfing the chaos.
Josh.